Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to play Hattin 1187. It was one of the decisive battles of the Crusaders era, where army of the Kingdom of Jerusalem was totally destroyed in the 2 days long battle by the Arab forces led by Saladin. And here I have a game covering this battle. This game comes with 2 scenarios, one for each day of the battle. And here is the setup for the day 1. You can see Crusaders units here and Arabs surrounding them from 3 directions. I am not going to play the entire battle. It would be too long for a video to take, but my goal is to show you mechanics of this system, how this game works, and how to play it. So I think this might be useful if someone never had a closer contact with medieval system in which this game was released. There was a couple of games released in this system since many years. Some of them are printed on the back of the box, like Hastings, Stamford Bridge and Fulford, Grunwald, Legnica, Papus Lake, or Bannockburn, Stirling and Falkirk. And as far as I know, there are more games coming, but I decided for Hattin since I have this game, and I think it is quite nice to show everything, because it uses a lot of various units, rules and so it will be easy to show everything in a single playthrough. Okay, let's start, and I think that for now I will zoom my camera a bit so you will be able to see everything better. Let's start with units. We have 2 major factors on the unit. First, its strength, it is 2, and movement, it is 8 on this Arab cavalry. Units might have 2, 1 or 0 strength points. On the single hex you can have only 2 strength points. So, for example, you can have 1 unit with a strength of 2, 2 units with a strength of 1, or some more units with the strength of 0, because yes, there are units with the strength of 0 as well. And next we have impact. Impact is shown in the number of shields here on the left side of the counter, and it shows units strength, because this strength point is more like a number of soldiers that represents that such counter represents, while impact is representing units strength. So the more shields the better. You can have no shield, you can have 1 shield, or you can have 2 shields. Some units are horse archers, like you can see there, and they have their own special abilities. Also, some units are archers or bowmen. Let me show you, for example, here. This unit is archer, and you can see it has 2 sides, and one side has a strength of 1 and a movement of 0. This means this is a side of the unit which is combat ready. This unit may fire with its crossbows when it is in such position, but it has also its movement side, where it has a strength of 0 and movement of 3. And this arrow here, it says this is its movement formation, and when counter is on this side, it cannot fire, it cannot fight, it has a strength of 0, but it can move. While being on this side, it can fire, but it cannot move normally. It can move only 1 hex during its movement phase. Also, there are commanders, like here or there, and commanders have no any of these factors, but they have their own factors and modifiers. Each commander has 10 movement points and has its range of command. So, for example, this he is a Balian of Ibelin and he has a command range of 2. So this means he can provide support for his units that are fighting on the 2 hexes range. One commander, for example here, Raymond, has a star. This means that he is overall commander of all forces. This means that he can command all the units of his army. So, for example, Balian might only command his own units, marked with his shield, as you can see, as you can see here. But Raymond may command any of his of the troops of the Crusaders' army. Same goes to Arabs. Here we have Saladin, who is an overall commander of the Arab army, and we have some other commanders. For example, one is here and one is there, and they can command their troops only. There are also banners. Banners provide some nice modifier for the units that are around them, but when the banner is captured by the enemy, then enemy morale gets a boost. Same happens when your commander is killed during the battle, then enemy's morale get a boost. And what is morale? Morale is a pretty important factor in this game. You can see a morale track here. It is pretty long for each side, and every time one of the enemy units is eliminated, you get your morale 1 level up. So, for example, if the Crusaders would eliminate one enemy unit, then they get +1, +2 for the other enemy unit. But if Arabs would eliminate one of the Crusaders units, then it goes down on the for the Arabs. Morale is changed at the end of each turn, so it is not changing instantly, but you have to wait till the end of the turn to mark all the changes. So it is not possible to simply make an attack, eliminate some enemy units, and then instantly get a morale bonus, which is, I think, pretty logical, because all the fights are going instantly. It is not like in the game when you are making your turn, enemy waits, then he is making his turn, you have to wait, and voila! Not morale changes at the end of the turn. One more factor which is important to remember about is fatigue. This is very true for the longer battle. Every time your formation moves, you have to move a fatigue counter by 1. You don't have to move all the units of this formation. You might move even 1 or 2 units of your formation, but even so, you have to move your fatigue marker. You can see that all the formations are marked with different colors, so it's easy to see what formation it is, and every time you move, then your formation counter moves up by 1. If it reaches 8, then this means that your units are spent. So, when you move your any single unit of your formation, then your fatigue counter goes up by 1. It cannot go more than 1 per turn. And if it reaches 8, then a half of units of such formation are scattered. I will talk about it soon, but I need to mention one more thing. If none of units of such formation moves during this turn, then you can go with your fatigue counter by 1 down. So there is a way to reduce the fatigue factor. And next about scatter. Units can be scattered in the result of the combat, or if you get a fatigue of 8. You can see that here is a fatigue track, and it has only 4 zones for Crusaders. It is a little bigger for Arabs, and fatigue track is also a little longer for Arabs, because they were better prepared for this combat. Arab Crusaders were in the march. They were marching from some time, while Arabs were waiting for them, so they were a little less spent than Crusaders. And if, at the beginning of each turn, you can take a half of your units from this fatigue track, from this scatter track, and place them on the hexes adjacent to their commanders. But if all the zones in this scatter track are occupied, all are occupied by your units, and you have to scatter more of your units, then such units are eliminated. So, for example, let's say that we have all of these zones occupied by Crusader units, and you get one more unit scattered. Then such unit is eliminated from the game. But what is pretty important, such elimination is not making a morale counter to move. So if you get 1 or 2 units eliminated in this way, you don't have to move this counter on the morale track, which is pretty good, even if you are losing your units. Now, about game's order. A game is divided into turns, and each turn is divided into phases. Phase 1, players A, cavalry movement. Phase B, phase 2, player A, cavalry combat. Phase 3, player A, infantry movement. And phase 4, player A, infantry combat. And next we have 4 more phases for the player B. Player with an initiative is player A, other player is player B. I think all of the games of this system have only 2 sides, so there are no 3 players game. But as for some of them, I think it is possible to play with more players, since you have different formations, so it's pretty easy to divide them into more players. But normally you are playing it with 2 players. And each unit might move in its phase only. So, for example, cavalry is allowed to move in its movement phase and fight in its combat phase, while infantry might move in its movement phase and attack in its combat phase. Of course, it can defend normally while attacked. And now about movement. Each unit, let's take one and place it here, has 3 front hex and 3 rear hexes. A unit may move normally onto the front hex only. If unit wants to change its facing, it has to pay a number of movement points. The same goes when it's moving. It is different when it comes to infantry and for cavalry. When it comes to infantry, it is pretty easy. Infantry pays 1 movement point for any change of facing. So when it's here, it moves 1, 2, and 3, for example. And of course it pays a number of movement points needed to enter such a hex. It depends on the terrain. When it comes to the cavalry, it is a bit different. Cavalry might start its movement and change its facing normally, spending a number of movement points equal to the number of arcs it wants to move. So, for example, it starts on this hex and wants to change its facing like that, so it has to spend 2 additional movement points. And when it starts moving, then the things are getting harder. If it moves 1 hex only, it can still change facing normally, just like before. But if it moves 2 hexes or more, it can change facing only by 1 arc. So, for example, it starts here, it moves 1, 2, and now it wants to change its facing. It can change its facing only by 1 arc now, because it moved by 2 or more hexes. So it can change it's facing like that, move onto this hex, and now again it can change facing normally, but if it will move 2 or more hexes, it can change facing by 1 again. So you can see this is pretty complicated. I think it sounds pretty complicated, but when you get into game, it starts to be pretty easy. And now impact. Impact is one of the very important things in this game, so let me talk about it more. Only cavalry units might get impact. No, it is not allowed for infantry to get an impact. And every time your cavalry unit moves 1 hex up without changing its facing on the clear terrain, without moving into woods, town, village, or anything like that, it gets 1 point of impact. If it moves 1 more hex, it gets 1 more point of impact. And your impact cannot be higher than 1 than your shields. So, for example, this unit has 2 shields, so its maximum impact is 3. It cannot get more than 3. Impact can be reduced. For example, if you are moving up the hill, let's say they are here, and they reached this hex with the impact of 3 already, then when you are moving up the hill, then your impact is reduced by 1, so it gets 2, for example. Same goes if it moves through the bridge or through the or through the stream. We have no bridges or stream in this particular game, but yes, that's how it works. Impact is a modifier for combat. So technically, this unit fighting with another unit gets +2 because of impact when it's looking for the result of its attack in the combat table. Impact is not used when you are attacking enemy unit which is in any kind of buildings, if it's behind any wall or woods or any kind of swamp. I think it makes sense when you are charging on the enemy. You are pretty strong when your enemy is on the clear terrain, but if he hides in the woods, then your impact is not going to work very well. Impact has another interesting ability, because, like I said, normally when your unit enters enemy zone of control, it has to stop, just like here. But if it has impact of 2 or 3, it may enter enemy zone of control, spend 1 more movement point, and move on. So impact can be really useful if you want to move through the enemy zone of control. Finally, impact gets 1 more interesting thing. If your impact is already 2 or 3 and your leg unit is on your way, you have an option to ride through your unit and to trample this unit. This means that such unit is eliminated. Yes, you can trample your own unit. Such things happened during the medieval battles, and if you are doing so, then enemy gets no morale boost because of unit eliminated in this way. One more thing about movement. It's about stacking. Like I said before, in any moment of the game, you cannot have more than 2 strength points on 1 hex. So, this means that you cannot move through your own units if you would overstack hex in such a way. For example, let's say that we have an infantry movement phase now, and this infantry unit wants to move. It cannot move, it can only change its facing, because all around, on all adjacent hexes are friendly units with 2 strength points, and this unit also has 2 strength points. So if for example if it would have one strength point, and this unit also would have one strength point, then it would be allowed to move. Moving through your friendly unit costs you one movement point. So 1, 2, 1, 2 for moving through the friendly unit, and 3, but you cannot overstack hex. There is one exception that allows you to overstack hex. At the beginning of the game. You can overstack hex, but you have to remove such units from this hex in the first movement phase possible. And if such hex is attacked, then only one unit, which is above the other, fights, but all of them have to suffer the result of combat. So, for example, if there would be 2 units on this hex at the beginning of the game, and they would be attacked by, for example, this Arab unit, then only the unit above would fight against this Arab unit, and if they would be forced to retreat, then both of them would have to retreat, but not stacked, but they would have to choose different routes of retreat. Okay. And last but not least, combat. Combat is usually resolved during the combat phase, but there is an option that it might occur during the movement phase. This is because of the countercharge ability. This means that if your unit, let's say this one, moves in the way it gets one hex from the enemy cavalry unit, then enemy cavalry unit might countercharge. It moves one hex only, you cannot move more than one hex, and it may attack instantly such moving unit. Of course, it might be cavalry, it might be archer, it might be anything, but you can only move one hex to countercharge the enemy. You get, of course, your impact. So, for example, they have no shields, so they can get impact by one, and such combat is resolved instantly. So, this is a very good way to react on enemy actions. You are not forced to stay and wait till enemy is going to do something, but you can countercharge. But you can countercharge with your mounted units only. You cannot countercharge with your infantry. How about combat? Combat is resolved quite easily. Let's say that this is our combat, and this Arab cavalry attacks this Christian infantry. First, we have to compare units' strength. So this is 2 against 2, so it's 1 to 1. Next, we have to check units' armor. They have one shield, they have one shield, so again it is 1 to 1. Next, we have to compare units' impact. They have 1, they have 0, so they have +1. So now we are going to use 2 to 1 column. And finally, we have to check for the morale. If morale is on the 1 or 2 or 3 on any of sides, then this side gets such a bonus. Also, if the commander is in range, just like for example now, such as they are in his range, then also you get a modifier from the commander. So this could be a 3 to 1 attack for Arabs. They have same strength, same armor, but they have +1 because of the impact and +1 because of the commander. If the situation would be like here, then it would be 2 to 1, because they are attacking up the hill, and attacking up the hill gets +1 for the defender. And then you have to check a combat table to see the result. Most of the results come with forcing one side to retreat. So if you get, for example, let's check. I have a Polish edition of this game, but it was released in English as well, so you have to ask for English rules while ordering. So, for example, if you get B2, then this means that defender, because B stands for broniący, which means defender in Polish, so B2 means that you have to retreat 2 hexes, 1, 2, and then you have to check the scatter table, which is here, and you can see it was B2, and it was infantry with one shield. So, infantry with 1 shield, and the result B2, we get 1. So we have to make a roll, 1d6, and if we get a result of 1, then such unit is scattered. Otherwise, it just has to retreat. When you are making your retreat, you have to check for all the limitations. So, for example, you cannot retreat through your friendly units. You cannot retreat through the enemy front zones. You cannot retreat through the terrain which is impossible for you. For example, cavalry cannot retreat through the swamp because it cannot enter the swamp. And if you cannot retreat, then you have to suffer 1 point loss. If you can retreat, of course, nothing happens. Cavalry might retreat through its own friendly units, but such units are trampled and they are eliminated from the game, just like before during the movement phase. And when enemy retreats, then your unit has to pursue it. You cannot choose if you want to pursue it or not. You have to pursue it. There is an option to avoid such obligatory pursuit. If your unit is on the hex with commander, it doesn't have to pursue it. It can, but it doesn't have to. And if you are in the proper range from commander, you can make a roll. If you roll a given number in this column, then you have to pursue it. But if you get a higher result, you don't have to pursue it. So, for example, they are in the 1 hex range from their commander, and let's say that they don't want to pursue it. So, if they will roll 1, they have to pursue it. You can see, pursue it obligatory. And if they if they roll 2 or more, they don't have to pursue it. They still can, but they don't have to. Also, a combat result might give us a result of -1. Just like here, just like here. This means that this unit suffers 1 point loss. So it is, if it's B2 -1, this means that defender has to retreat 2 hexes and suffer 1 point loss. If it's -1/B2, this means that attacker suffers 1 point loss and the defender has to retreat 2 hexes. Finally, there is sometimes an error here. This means that such unit is scattered. For example, this result tells us that attacker is losing 1 step and defender. All the defender units have to retreat 3 hexes and all of them are scattered. So you don't have to make a roll for scatter when you get a result of R. All your units are scattered instantly, without checking if they are going to be scattered or not. And finally, ranged combat. Some units in this system are allowed to perform ranged combat. These are archers, crossbowmen, mounted archers, artillery, and so on. In this game we have mounted archers, we have archers, and we have crossbowmen. And in this game, archers are significantly weaker than in some other game of this system. So, archers and crossbowmen might fire only if they are in the fire chic. They cannot fire if they are in the movement chic, like this. They can only fire when they are in the movement chic, and they can fire on the 2 hexes range or 1 hex range during enemy movement phase, while mounted archers might fire in the enemy movement phase, but they might also fire during their own movement phase, spending 1 additional movement point. So, for example, they might move like here. They might move like here, 1 movement point, then they spend 2nd movement point to fire at this infantry unit, and they might move again. Each unit might fire only once during their phase. So they cannot fire more than one. They cannot, for example, let's return. They cannot do like that, like moving here, firing at them, then moving here, firing at them, and again and again. They can only fire once during their movement phase. So, I think that's all when it comes to the basics. I think that some other things might appear later when we are going to start our game, but as for now, I think that's most of the stuff I should talk about this system. So let's go and check this particular scenario. This is scenario titled 3rd of July. And starting morale is 0. There are some scenarios when your morale might be different at the beginning of the game. For example, even the second scenario for this game starts with morale +1, or if you are playing all of these scenarios together, which is I think the best option, you are starting with the scenario from the previous, with a morale from the previous scenario. But here, a morale at the beginning of the battle is 0. Initiative, Crusaders. So, Christian player, I know how it sounds, but yeah. So, player that controls Crusaders is player A, so he moves his units first. This scenario takes 12 turns to play. Like I said, we are not going to play all the scenario, it will be too long. I'm going to play 1 or maybe 2 turns to show you everything about game. Next, we have to set up our units. As you can see, they are already set up. Game gives us a number of hexes around which you can set up your units. So you are not forced to place them on the specific hexes, but you have a starting hex for the commander, like here. Here we have a guy of Lusignan, and you have a given range for the units. For example, cavalry might start in the 1 hex range from him, while infantry might start in the 4 hexes range from him. So that's how I set up my units. I'm using my cavalry, my infantry to protect my flanks, while cavalry has to start near the commander, so its options are limited at the beginning of the game. I will have to use my infantry first. But thanks to this setup, this infantry is not blocking cavalry's way. If I would place my infantry here, then all these cavalry units would be blocked, and that's not what I'm going to get. So this is my setup. As for Muslims, same thing. They have given hexes for their commanders, or some other, like for example, where do I have one? Oh, here you can see there is one of the starting hex, and you can set up your units in the 1 or 2, mostly 1 hexes range from these hexes. If you cannot, then you can overstack at the beginning of the game, just like I said before. And now victory conditions, and these are interesting. Crusaders get 3 victory points for each unit that leaves the board to the northern edge of the board. So let's take a look. Here we have a northern edge, and if any unit leaves the board through the northern edge, then Crusader gets +3 victory points. There is 2 victory points for each Crusader unit that leaves the board to the east edge of the board. This means this edge. So they can simply try to escape the battle, trying to leave the board through the nearest edge, but it would be pretty hard for them to do so. And finally, they can get 1 victory point for each unit that leaves through the western part of the board. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. This is western and this is eastern. So 1 victory point for leaving through this edge, and 2 victory points for leaving through this edge. So this is up to a Catholic player to decide how he is going to play. He has to choose his strategy. If he wants to drive through the enemies, trying to attack Muslims and breaking to their lines and getting a lot of victory points for leaving to the northern part of the northern edge of the board, or eastern, or getting a small number of victory points and leaving to the western edge of the board. So this is up to player to choose his strategy. Of course, Muslims have to choose their strategy either if they are going to massive attack against enemy, or if they are going to attack single units trying to use their overwhelming advantage, or just to stop the enemy. Trying to stop the enemy might result with the higher losses among Muslims, because Christians has a number of these great heavy cavalry units with 2 shields, and Arabs have no such strong cavalry. They have only cavalry with 1 shield or no shield, and some mounted archers. So the choice is yours. Okay, let's start the game. We are starting with turn 1, and initiative goes for Crusaders, so they are player A. Let's move my camera a bit, maybe zoom in, and let's go. First, we have a cavalry movement phase, so we have to start with our cavalry movement. And as you can see, Raimond's cavalry cannot move much, because its infantry is blocking its way, so I will have to move my infantry first to make a way for cavalry. So Raimond's cavalry is not going to move in this turn. Next, let's go to the guy's cavalry. I think his units, well, they also have a problem with infantry, so I will have to wait till infantry movement phase to move them a bit. But I think I am allowed to move some of them. So 1, and next I have to check, because you can see that there is another clear terrain here. So let me check for. This is a bush. Brush. So I have to spend 1 movement point to move up the hill, and 4 movement point to move here. So it was 1 to move here, 2 to move here, and 6 to move here. So that's all. Now them. 1, 2, 3, and I cannot move here because it would cost me 1 movement point to move up the hill, and 4 movement points to move onto this hex. So no. 1, 2, 3, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's all for Guy's cavalry. Well, this is pretty normal in this battle. Crusaders were in the tight march formation. They weren't ready for a combat. And now let's go to the Balian's forces. Also, I have to, since I moved some of the Raimonds and the Guy units, I have to move their fatigue markers on the fatigue track on the level of 1. And now Balian. Now what Balian is going to do? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3. So that's all for his cavalry. And also, I also have to move his fatigue marker on the point of 1. So you can see I moved all their fatigue markers. And I have no combat because none of my cavalry is adjacent to the enemy units, so nothing to do. And next I have a Crusaders infantry movement phase. So now we have an infantry movement phase, and I have to move my infantry a bit to make a way for cavalry. So I'm starting with this unit. They are declaring their movement and they want to enter this hex. But in the same time, this Muslim cavalry might countercharge on them. So this cavalry moves here and gets +1 impact modifier because it moved 1 hex up in the clear terrain, and it can countercharge on the enemy, so we have to resolve this combat instantly. So we have 2 against 2, so it's 1 to 1, armor of 1 and armor of 1, so it's again 1 to 1. They have impact +1, so it is 2 to 1 now, and they are in the range of their commander because he has a range of 3, so it is 1 to 1 again. So the odds are 1 to 1. We have to make a roll for 11. 11 in the 1 to 1. What it says? Let's check. 1 to 1, 11, A1. So this means that attacker has to retreat 1 hex. Good. They are losing their impact because they were forced to retreat. They are moving here, and they are cavalry with the 1 shield, and with a result of 1, they don't scatter. We don't even have to make a roll for scatter. Let me show you why. A1, cavalry with 1 shield, nothing. So we don't have to make a roll for them. That's good for Muslims. But even so, we can take this hex because we made enemy to retreat. So I will continue my movement here, and now they are going to countercharge on me. Same situation. 1, 2, 3. Yes, they are still in range of their commander, so same situation. And let's make a roll. Oh, another bad roll for Muslims. It is 9. 9 in the 1 to 1. It is A1. So they are retreating, they are losing their impact, and my infantry moves here. Good. Now they are moving here, and now they are countercharging on them. So impact +1. They are still in range of their commander. So same situation, 1 to 1, and yet another horrible roll. 11. 11 in the A1. It is same result, A1. so they are forced to retreat, and my infantry moves here. Okay, so now Crusaders infantry is doing quite fine. Now, 1, 2. You can see that they are infantry, so they cannot countercharge. So that's all. Now, 1, 2, 3. They are moving here. Their goal is to, well, make some way for cavalry and to drive Muslims away. As for them, 1, 2, and now these mounted archers may attack them, so they are countercharging. They have impact of 1. You can see that they cannot get more impact than that 1 because they have no shields, so they are attacking. First, they are allowed to fire on the enemy, to spray them with arrows. Well, we get 2, so nothing, and now we have to resolve a combat. I think it is still the same situation, 1-to-1, yeah. And now we get 6. 6 in the 1-to-1 is nothing. It is nothing, so nothing happens. Each side remains where it is, and they are losing their impact. Now this infantry, 1, 2, 3, moves here. They can countercharge at them as well, but it will be harder since they are up the slope and they would be attacking up the slope. So do I want to do this? I think yes. So countercharge, first roll for mounted archers fire, 10. Oh, let me see if it's not effective. Yes, this is effective. So they are suffering 1 point loss. That's good. That's good, and now we have to resolve a combat. They get impact +1 because they were moving down the slope, and now since they are moving up the slope, they will have they are attacking up the slope, they will have this impact reduced by 1. So no impact for them, and now they have 2 against 1, so it's 2-to-1. It is 1-to-1 because they are attacking up the hill, and 1-to-2 because they are in the range of their commander, and 1-to-3 because they have armor of 1 and they have armor of 0. I forgot about using it here, I think. So it is 1-to-4, not very good rolls for odds for Muslims, and the roll is 8. 8 in the 1-to-4, it is A1. So attacker has to retreat 1 hex. It is light cavalry with the shields of 0. So even they don't have to make a roll for being scattered. Good. Now this infantry, 1, 2, 3. That's all. No, there is a brush here, and the brush is 2 movement points. So 2 and 3. So that's all for the guys, Raimond's infantry. Now we are moving into the guys infantry. It will be harder to show you. Okay, maybe like that. As for them, I will leave them where they are. They are going to defend their positions. Maybe I will move them up to the Bruges, because it will be better to defend here. But that's all for them. Now here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Now they are not overstacked because they have the strength of 2, and these 2 units have strength of 0. So we still have 2 points of strength on 1 hex, so they can move like that. They can move like that. And now they are going 1, 2, and that's all for the guys infantry. And now Balian's infantry is going to be the last to move. So they are going to make their way for their cavalry as well. You can see that there is a mess. Their goal is to protect their flank. So I will move them 1, 2. These crossbowmen here. And as for my infantry, 1, 2, 3. When you are moving down the road, you don't have to pay for changing your facing as long as you are moving down the road. So, for example, if you would move like here, and then you would have to change your facing to follow the road here, you don't have to pay for such change of facing. So, for example, they are moving 1, 2, 3. They don't have to move to change 1, 1. They are just moving normally down the road. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's all for them. And now these archers. 1, 2, 3. They can occupy the same hex. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. And these guys are going to be my rear guard, so I'm not going to move them anyway. So that's all, I believe, for the Crusaders infantry movement, and we can go into the Crusaders infantry combat phase. Let's go. We have some combat to resolve here. We don't have any combat to resolve with Guy or Balian units, but Raymond's infantry has some fight to do. Let's start here. I have 3 against 1, so it's 3 to 1. Next, I have each of my units has a shield, and they have no shield, so I have another +1. So I have +1, so it's 4 to 1. And now I'm in the range of my commander, so it's 4 to 1. They are in the clear terrain, so no modifier, so the odds are 4 to 1. Let me roll. It is 5. 5. In the 4 to 1, it is B2 -1. So they have to retreat 2 hexes, 1, 2, and suffer 1 point loss. And it was 2 hexes range. They are light cavalry, so I have to make a roll for scatter. 6. So they are fine. And now my units are in the 3 hexes range from their commander, so I have to make a roll for the obligatory pursuit. It first for them, second for them. I have to get 1 or 3. If I get higher than 3, they don't have to pursue it. 1, oh, so they have to. 1, 2, and now for them 3, they have to. So on. When you are finishing your pursuit, you are allowed to change your facing as you like. Okay, that's for this combat, and now here we have a couple of battles here. I will start here. I have 2 against 2, so it's 1 to 1. Shields are 1 to 1, so nothing, and they are in the 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes range from the commander, so no commander bonus, so it is 1 to 1. 8. 8 in the 1 to 1 is -1 for the attacker, so they suffer 1 point loss. Same situation here? No. Here we have 2 to 1 because they are in the range of their commander. So it's 2 to 1 for the Crusaders. It is 5. 5 in the 2-1 is B1 -1. So defender suffers 1 point loss, and he has to retreat 1 hex. And they cannot. You can see that all the rear hexes of their rear zone are already occupied by friendly units, but each of them has 2, they have 1, so they cannot move through these hexes, so they are eliminated. Now I have to make a roll for obligatory pursuit. 1, they are forced to perform a pursuit, and we have to remember about this unit which was eliminated in this turn, because at the end of this turn we will use it to change the final morale. Next battle goes here. We have 1-1 because they are 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes range, and he has 3 hexes range of command. So it's 1-1. It is 7. 7 in the 1-1 is -1, -1. So each side suffers 1 point loss. Alright, and 2 more battles here. First, they are attacking them. It is 1-1. 1, 2, 3. Yes, no commander. So 1-1 and 9. 1-1 and 9. A1. So now they are forced to retreat, and I have to make a roll for them. If they are well, they don't have any commander in the range, so yes, they have to pursue it. And now here, same situation. 6 in the 1-1. It is nothing. So that's all for the combat phase of the infantry. You can see 1 unit was eliminated, but we have to wait till the end of this turn till we will include these losses on the morale track. So that's all for the infantry movement phase. And combat phase, we have to move to Muslims now. And same thing, same stuff. We are starting with Muslim cavalry movement phase, and so on and so on. You can see that Muslims have a lot of units here. I don't have to move all of them, of course, but, well, even if I will move one of them, I will have to include it on the fatigue track. So let's go with Saladin units first. This is cavalry movement phase, so we have to move our cavalry first. So 1, 2, 3, or maybe not, sorry. 1, we get impact of 1. 2, we get now impact of 0. 3, impact returns to 1. 4, 5, and now let's mark that we spent 5 movement points because they are moving towards enemy archers, and now these archers may fire at them, which is something they are going to do. Let us make a roll. 6. We are firing on the 2 hexes range, so nothing. We made no hit, and our impact goes up to 2 and 6. Impact cannot be higher than 1 up of the 1 above the shield's armor marker, so we can get impact of 2, no more. Now them, 1, 2, they get impact of 1, 3, now they have impact of 2, 4, archers will try to fire at them, 7, they missed, and now that's how they are moving. Now these horse archers, 1, impact 1, 2, impact 0, 3, impact 4, impact 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are spending one movement point to fire at them, so they are losing their impact, and they are firing at these guys. Oh, 10. No, I need 11 or 12 when I'm firing on the 2 hexes from the 2 hexes range. So I am moving here, and I get again impact of 1. Alright, next. I think them. 1, impact by 1, 2, impact of 0, 3, impact by 1, 4, impact 2, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Now them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is a banner, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is not going to be used in the direct combat, but it might give us some additional nice modifiers we want to have. So now all these cavalry units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have impact of 1, but they are not adjacent to any enemy unit, so they can keep it. 1, 2, impact of 2, 3, and 7, and they are losing their impact. And that's all. 1, 2, impact of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, because they will be attacking up the slope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I think that's all for Saladin's cavalry. Yes. So we can go to the other cavalry units. So now I have these Takidin's forces, and what I'm going to do, I will fire at them with these horse archers. 11, yes, I scored a hit. Good. And I am moving here, so I have an impact of 1. As for them, I'm not going to move them. As for them, I will. 1, 2, 3, impact of 1. 4, impact of 2. Okay, that's all. I will keep them as my reserve for now. Now them. 1, 5, 6, and that's all. Cannot go any further. because moving into this hex would cost me 4 movement points and I don't have enough. And now them, they will move here, they get impact by +1, but they will be attacking up the slope, so they get their impact limit lowered by 1, so it returns to 0. They are moving here, 4 hexes range, sorry, 4 movement points, but this is not a clear terrain, so they cannot get impact counter. And I think that's all for the Taki's cavalry. Yeah, that's all. And now let's go to the Kuberki cavalry forces. Okay, this will be pretty hard for me to record them because of my camera limitations. I think I will have to zoom out a bit, so I believe you can still see everything quite good. So let's start. 1, 2, 3. They have sorry. Again, so to make everything nice. 1, impact of 1, 2, impact of 2. Now they are changing their facing, so impact is reduced to 0, and here they are moving with the impact of 1. And now these crossbowmen may fire at them. 5, nothing. They are charging. 1, impact by 1, 2, impact by 2. They 1, 2, 3, they get impact of 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. So archers are firing at them. They missed, and they have impact of 2. They 1, 2, 3, and 4, impact of 1. Now them 1, 2, 3. Archers, crossbowmen are firing at them. They got 9 on the result of 1 in the range of the 1 hex. So yes, they scored a hit. They lose 1 point, and their impact is also lowered by 1. Them 1, 2, 3, and now change facing, and 1. So they have impact of 1. At the beginning of the game there is a lot of use of these impact markers, but later, when our forces are mixed with enemy, and they are all often starting their fight adjacent to the enemy hexes, so they don't get that much of the impact markers, but now you can see they have a pretty much of them. Now these horse archers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so they have an impact of 1. And they spent one of their oh no, they have 8 movement points, so they cannot get they cannot fire because they already spent all their movement points. Now this cavalry unit moves here. I have a couple of horse archers here, but they are standing behind their cavalry, so infantry, so they cannot do much now. Let them stay where they are. And I think that's all for the Muslim movement phase. As for cavalry, of course, I have to move all the Muslim fatigue markers by 1, since I moved all the formations. And now I have to resolve all the attacks. You can see there is a lot of them. Muslims in general are more aggressive at the beginning of the game, and their goal is to get as many morale points at the beginning of the game, since Crusaders have these heavy cavalry units, so Arabs' goal is to defeat as many of weaker units to get morale boost that will nullify these two shields factor of these heavy cavalry units. Okay, let's resolve all the attacks. Let's start here. I have cavalry attacking this light infantry unit. I have 2 against 2, so it's 1 to 1. I have 2 to 1 because of my armor, and 3 to 1 because of my impact. So it's 3 to 1. And there is a combat table here on the table as well. I think it will be easier to use. So let's make a roll. It is 3 to 1, and I got 6. 6 in the 3 to 1 is B1 minus 1. So defender has to retreat 1 hex. It suffers 1 point loss, one step loss, and it was infantry without any armor factor. So if I will roll 1, then it is scattered, and I rolled 1 actually. So this unit is placed on the scatter track, and they are out of the range of the commander. Well, commander is here, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I have to roll 5 or 6. I rolled 3, so they have to pursue it. They are placed right onto this hex. And now, all the battles here. First, you have to attack all the enemy units that are in your zone of control if they are not attacked by other of your units. So, for example, this Arab cavalry have to attack this unit, that unit, because there are no Arab units that would attack them, and might attack this unit as well. But it doesn't have to, since this Arab cavalry might attack them. So, I will attack these 2 units. Let's check. I have 2 against 3. So it is 1 to 2. Next, I have armor factor of 1, and they have armor factor of 1 as well. So no shift because of factor, but I have impact of 2. So 1, 2, to the 2 to 1. There are no commanders in a range, no banners, so that's all. Let's make a roll in the 2 to 1 column, and I got 8. This means nothing. So I have to remove impact, but nothing happens. Next, combat goes here. I have 2 against 2, so it's 2 to 1. They have armor of 1, they have armor of 0, so we got 1 to 2 because of the armor difference. Next, they have impact of 1, so we move to the 1 to 1, and they are adjacent to the banner. If unit is adjacent to its banner, it gets +1. So we have 2 to 1 as again. I rolled 6. In the 2 to 1, it is B1. So they have to retreat 1 hex, and they are in the 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes range, but I want to pursue it anyway, so I am moving here. Alright. Also, one more thing that I forgot about. If unit forced enemy cavalry to if cavalry unit forced enemy unit to retreat, it might keep impact. So this is pretty good, I think, but I have to check one thing to make sure I am not wrong as for impact. Yes, and after the combat, impact is instantly reduced by 1. So they had 1, and it is then it is lowered by 0, and they had also 1, so it is lowered into 0. Next battle goes here. We have 2 against 1, and now we have armor of 1 against armor of 0, so it's 2 to 1. Sorry, so it's 3 to 1. We have impact of 2, so it's 5 to 1, and we are adjacent to the banner, so we have 6 to 1. This is 6 to 1. I got 8. 8 in the 6 to 1 is b2. So they have to retreat. They are changing their facing into movement. 1, 2. I have to make a roll for their scatter. 3. They are archers, and it was b2. They need 1 or 2. I get 3, so they are fine. And I am moving 1, 2. And my impact was 2. It is reduced by 1. So it is 1. Next battle goes here. We have 2 against 2. Enemy has armor of 1. I have armor of 0, so it's 1 to 2. But I have impact of 1, so it's 1 to 1. I got 6 in the 1 to 1, nothing. So my impact is removed. If you are not forcing enemy to retreat, then your impact is instantly reduced to 0. Now, these 2 units are attacking them. I have 4 against 2, so it's 2 to 1. My shield is 1, their shield is 0, so it's 3 to 1. I have impact of 2 and impact of 1, so I can only choose the higher impact. I cannot use 1 plus 2, but I have to choose if I am using this or that. Of course I am using the highest impact, so I have plus 2. So it was 2 to 1, 3 to 1 and 5 to 1. Now I am making a roll. 5 in the 5 to 1, it is b2. So they have to retreat 2 hexes, 1, 2, and now I have to make a roll for their possible scatter. 5, they are fine, and now they are losing their impact since it was 1, and they have their impact lowered by 1. And they decide to perform a pursuit. I think they have to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can roll for them. I got 4, so they have to pursue it. So 1, 2, 3. Sorry, it was b2, I believe. Yes. So 1, 2, and they 1, 2. So that's for them, and that's all for the battles here. But that's not for all the battles we have, since we have some more combats to resolve here. This is cavalry phase, so they are infantry, so they cannot attack. So I am attacking this infantry with these 2 cavalry units. I have 2 and 2, so it's 4 against 1. It is 4 to 1. They have shield of 1, they have shield of 1, so it's still 4 to 1, and they have impact of 1, so it's 5 to 1. So it is 5 to 1, and a roll is 8. 8 in the 4 to 1, it is b1 minus 1. So they have to suffer 1 point loss, so they are eliminated. And I can move this cavalry here. Because if you are eliminated enemy unit, you can only take a hex which was occupied previously by the eliminated unit. You cannot go any further. Next combat goes here. I will attack them with this unit only. I have 2 against 1, so it's 2 to 1. Armor factor is the same, so it's still 2 to 1. 3 to 1, 4 to 1 because of the impact. 11. Oh my, this is nothing. So impact is gone and they are standing where they were. Next battle goes here. I will attack them with these 2 units. So I have 3 against 2, 1 to 1. Armor is the same. I have no impact factor, so it's 1 to 1. 6 in the 1 to 1 is nothing. And another battle goes here. I have 2 against 1, 2 to 1. Armor is the same, no impact, so it's 2 to 1. I have 4 it is -1 B2. Defender has to retreat 2 hexes, attacker suffers 1 point loss, and it can pursue it. But first I have to make a roll for the possible scatter of the defender. I got 2. They have armor factor of 1, so they are fine. So they are not scattered. I would need to roll 1 to make them scatter. And now here, I am attacking here. I have 2 against 1, so it's 2 to 1. But they have a armor of 1, so it's 1 to 1. And they are up the hill while I am down to hill. So it is 1 to 2, 7. In the 1 to 2 it is A1. So they are forced to retreat. And one more combat goes here. I have 1 against 2, so it's 1 to 2, 1 to 3 because of the higher armor factor. 1 to 3 and 5, -1 for the attacker, so they are eliminated. Okay. That's all? Oh no! That's not all. We have a couple of battles here. Let's start with this combat. They are attacking these crossbowmen. They have 4 against 1, so it's 4 to 1, 5 to 1 because of armor factor, and 6 to 1 because of their impact. So it's 6 to 1. I rolled 8. 8 in the 6 to 1 is B2. So these guys have to retreat. 1, 2. I have to roll for their possible scatter. 2. Yes, they are scattered. And I have to remove my impact markers, and I can move 1 here. Okay, now they are attacking them. It is 1 to 1, 1 to 2, and 1 to 3 because of the impact. I rolled 11. In the 3 to 1 it is -1 for the attacker. No good. So they are suffering 1 point loss and they lose their impact. Next, they are attacking them. Again, 3 to 1. 8 this time. 3 to 1 and 8. -1 B1. So they have to retreat 1 hex. They have to retreat 1 hex. They suffer 1 point loss. They have to pursue it, and they lose their impact of 1. So they have their impact reduced into 1. Okay, who's going to attack next? I believe them. They are attacking these archers. They have 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, and 5 to 1. And because they are attacking into up the hill, so it's 4 to 1, and these are also there is also a brush, and brush provides -1. So 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, 5 to 1, 4 to 1, 3 to 1. So it's 3 to 1. Let's make a roll. 6 in the 3 to 1 is B1 -1. So they have only 1 point, so they are eliminated. They can take this hex, and their impact is done, because you cannot get impact while entering this hex. And now they are attacking them. Okay, 1 to 1, 1 to 1, 2 to 1 because of the impact, 1 to 1 because of the upper level, and 1 to 2 because of the brush. So it's 1 to 2 and 8, 1 to 2, A1 -1. So attacker is forced to retreat and suffers 1 point loss. They are attacking them. Same situation, 1 to 2. Oh no, there is no brush, so the odds are different. 1 to 1, 1 to 1, 2 to 1, and 1 to 1 because of the up the slope. So I have 9 in the 1 to 1, it is A1. So attacker retreats 1 hex. And the last battle, they are attacking these crossbowmen. They have 1, so it's 1 to 1, 2 to 1 because of the armor, 3 to 1 because of the impact, and 2 to 1 because they are attacking up the hill. 7 in the 2 to 1, -1 b1. So they have to they are eliminated because they were already reduced, and they have to retreat, and I have to make a roll for their scatter. I rolled 1, so they are scattered. There are already 3 Christian units scattered. So that's all for the Muslim cavalry phase. Next we have Muslim infantry movement phase. There won't be much stuff to do with infantry now, because you can see it is pretty slow. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Not much to do. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, no. 1, 2, and they cannot move any further, because they would have to pay 1 more movement point for moving up the hill. 1, 2, 1. So they are moving like that. Not much stuff to do. And let's go check for them. I believe there is more stuff to do with my infantry here, where they are going to fight against them. I will move them closer. 1, 1, 2. And he goes here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's all for them. Now they. 1, 2, 3, 4. They are going to attack here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that's all for them. And now these yellow guys. What are they going to do? 1, 2, 1, 2, and now these crossbowmen may fire at them. I got 5, so nothing. 1, 2, 1. I'm not going to attack now because I think I need to move my units closer. So now these crossbowmen can fire at them. 10, yeah. So they are weakened by 1. Oh, I forgot to remove this impact marker. And this commander will move closer, so he will be able to provide some nice support for his troops. So that's all for the infantry movement. There wasn't much stuff to do. And let's go and check for combat. I think we don't have much combat with infantry, but I think there is some. Yes, this infantry attacks this infantry, so we have 1 to 1, and they are in the range of their commander, so it is 1 to 2. So it is 1 to 2, and 3. 3, it is -1 b1. So attacker suffers 1 step loss, and defender has to retreat 1 hex, and they are pursuing them. Okay, next here. I am attacking with these 2 units, so I have 4 against 2, so it's 2 to 1, and armor is the same because we are using the armor of the strongest unit. So if they have 0, they have 1, and they have 1, we have to use 1 against 1. So it is 2 to 1. 5 in the 2 to 1 is b1 minus 1. So they have to retreat 1 hex. Yes, they can enter here because this is a rear zone of this unit. You cannot retreat into the front zone of enemy units, but you can retreat into the rear zone of enemy unit, and they have to suffer 1 because it was b1 minus 1, and they are pursuing here. Now they are attacking here. They have 2 to 1 because of 2 against 1. The armor is the same, so it's 2 to 1. 7 in the 2 to 1 is minus 1 b1. So defender suffers 1, attacker suffers 1 point loss, and the defender has to retreat 1 hex. So they are retreating here, and I am performing a pursuit there. So that's all for the movement phase, for the infantry combat phase. Yes, I think that's all. Now, when the turn is over, we have to check for morale. Let's go onto morale track, and now 2 Christian units were eliminated, so we have to move morale down to 2 for Muslims, and now 3 Muslim units were eliminated either, so 1, 2, 3. So the final morale is now plus on the first zone of 0 for Christians. It is not providing anything to them as for now, but it is moving closer towards 1. And if it will reach 1, then a Christian player will get +1 modifier for each combat. Now we have to put these units somewhere else to remember that they were eliminated in this turn, and they won't be used in the next turn to check for morale. So now we are moving into the turn 2. I'm not going to play the entire turn 2, because it would be long, and I think I was able to provide you most of the things I wanted to show you. But you can see that there are 3 infantry units on the scatter track. So when we will reach infantry movement phase, before any other things are going to happen, we have to take a half of them, round it up, so 2 of them, and place them adjacent to their commanders. And they will be able to move and do anything like that, stuff like that normally. So I think that's all for this video. I hoped I was able to show you most of the stuff I wanted to show. If you will have any other questions about this system, this game, rules and so, feel free to post them in the comments. As for today, that's all. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.